Business strategist, speaker, teacher, and best-selling author John Izzo is my guest. He has started a stepping up movement. He firmly believes if one person steps up, it is all that really matters. Now, some people would say, don't think so, John. I mean, that's a little silly.
Well, you know, I think here's the real deal is that all we can control is one person. We can control our legacy. You know, was something a little better because we were here. And I think that's what all of us want as human beings. We want to know somehow something was a little better because we were here. And so I think ultimately that's what we all want.
Well, and that we worked at the top of our game, no matter what. No matter what the circumstances are here or there, we worked at the top of our game. Even if we didn't feel valued, even if we felt angry, whatever. We worked at the top of our game all the way down the pike. Abraham Maslow.
Exactly. You know, that we just gave it everything we had, right? And that's part of the reason to step up in all the realms of our life is because you don't want to say, you know, I left something off the table. You know, one of the people I interviewed for the book, who's the senior VP of a big company in Canada, related even stepping up to her ex-husband in her marriage. She said, you know, after we got divorced, at least I felt like I stepped up and did everything I could to make that marriage good. So I had no regret I took into my next relationship. So that's a part of it, isn't it? If we're fully in, there's no regret. And that's what we all want, no regret, because we were fully in.
Of course. Well, one marriage counselor said, you know, no couples ever come to me where one of them steps up and says, this is my fault.
Yes.
It's always his fault, her fault, not my fault. I didn't have much to do with the problems in this relationship.
Yeah. And yet, I can't fix you. No, I can only fix myself.
Exactly.
Just like those re-spiriting committee folks couldn't fix everyone else. They had to start with themselves, and suddenly things
No matter
changed.
what happens to you in your life, I believe you're accountable. You're not necessarily responsible. You are accountable. And back to Abraham Maslow, I was thinking of when he said long ago, a first-rate soup is more creative than a second-rate painting. So let's keep the soup first rate, no matter what it takes.
Yeah, I
but when
agree.
you have a dispirited staff and the morale's down and change has happened and the CEO is not leading, you feel you don't have a leader who inspires, where do you start?
Well, again, I think the key thing is, of course it's great. I work with some of the biggest companies in the world.
Exactly.
Having great leadership is no replacement for that, right? And I spend a lot of my time trying to get leaders to create great cultures. But the thing is, we all can do something. I think of one of my favorite stories in Stepping Up is about a group of employees in a company in Calgary where there was no work-life balance in their company of 600 people. And everyone joked about the CEO should do something that we don't have any work-life balance here. And so again, 2 employees just started meeting once a week to say, what could we do about work-life balance? Because they got so tired of waiting for someone else to act. And it's very similar to the respiriting story. Within about 60 days, they had 25 people meeting once a week, some managers, some frontline people saying, what could we do about work-life balance? Not someone else, us.
Right.
Again, within a year, the company had adopted most of their policies. So if you have a CEO who's antithetical to a great culture, you know, a dictator, you're not going to do very well. But with benign leadership, a lot of people can step up and make the change go the other way, if that makes sense.
Sure, and I know you work a lot with teams in corporate cultures,
Yes.
and certainly if you want somebody to speak out, you have to allow them to be at the table.
Yes, exactly.
And embrace their thoughts and listen.
Yeah, you know, one of the things, you know, I work with a lot of companies around how to get individuals to step up. In fact, I'm leaving tomorrow night to go to Australia to Qantas Airlines wants to put all their employees through a program on how do we step up and make a difference. And in the book I talk about if you want your employees to step up and make a difference, the first thing is you have to give them a seat at the table. You have to ask for their opinions. You have to ask them to help solve the problems with you. And in the book I tell these stories of, you know, leaders who had companies that were doing very poorly, but when they gave people a seat at the table and said, look, what do you think we should do? Suddenly people said, you know, okay, we'll help you change.
Right, but that's being heard. And so many employees, you can yap away about this and that, and it's kind of corporate crap, really.
Yeah.
Like somebody comes in and says, okay, I want to hear what all of you think. But what you know as an employee, they're going in this direction, and no matter what I say isn't going to make a difference. Now that's a tough place to be, no matter what I say, because I know that they've got a plan, but they're just doing this. This is tokenism at its worst.
It's a very tough place, and yet when that is real, it's so powerful. You and I had talked earlier off camera about Don Knaus, who, and Don had...
Is he Clorox?
Yeah, he's at Clorox now, the CEO of Clorox, but formerly he was a U.S. Marine officer, and then his first job after the Marines was he ran the worst region for Frito-Lay in the United States. They had the worst numbers in every metric for any region at Frito-Lay, and the employees had literally checked out years ago. And so what happened was when Don went there, the first thing he said was, remember, only naive people change the world. He said, I have a goal within 9 months that we'll be the best performing region at Frito-Lay instead of the worst performing. And all the employees kind of laughed at him, but he said, but here's the deal. I'm not smart enough to figure out how to do that. But together I think we can figure it out. So he spent his first 2 months just talking to every person in the region saying, if you were me, how would you change this? And how do you think we have to change this? And he listened to their ideas, implemented most of them, and within 9 months, they had become the best performing region at Frito-Lay. And I think what you see are a wonderful combination, an optimistic leader who said, look, I believe in you, but at the same time, I'm not smart enough to solve this. So when leaders really do listen to people and give them a seat at the table, people tend to step up because they feel responsible, and that's exactly what happened. And to me, I've seen that happen so many times in my career.
I bet you have, and as we know, and many people have pointed out, successful people embrace the power of love. Now that sounds a little woo-woo, new agey, but it is true. And in your last book, 5 Secrets You Must Discover Before You Die, as we all search for deeper meaning in life. Who am I really? What do I value? What is happiness to me?
Yeah, exactly. And whether it's at work or outside, I mean, that's what we all seek. And it's interesting, all of my books, in a way, have had a similar theme. Go out and find out where it's working and see what we can learn from it. So in Awakening Corporate Soul, where are passionate companies with employees who love working there? What can we learn? And then in the 5 Secrets, I asked people, tell me about the one older person you know who has found true happiness and has something to teach us. And after getting 2,000 nominations, we interviewed these 250 people with 18,000 years of life experience who had only one thing in common. Someone said, this is the happiest person that older person that I know. And again, what I discovered was these common themes. People who said, look, be yourself. Don't leave any regret. Don't leave any regrets, right? This idea we talked about earlier, be all in. They said, be a lover, not a hater. They said, give more than you take, right? Don't wind up taking more from the world. Ask what I can give, and be in the moment, and understand that happiness isn't out there. And I think so often that's how we learn in life. Find people who've made it work and learn from them, and I think we don't do enough of that in our society, period, is find out where it's working and see what we can learn. Too often we say, where isn't it working? And what's wrong? We ought to really find out where it is working and find out what we can learn.
What we value. And then having the courage to get out of Dodge if what's happening is not where you want to be, and that's tough.
It is tough. And yet, your life is at stake. I remember one of the people I interviewed for Stepping Up said, don't forget your life is at stake. Not your physical life, but your psychic life, your spiritual life. So if you choose to be in a soul-depleting workplace, if you choose to continue a career or life that isn't true to who you are, if you choose to see a problem and not step up and live with the regret of not having done one, these are very powerful things. Your life, in fact, is at stake. And most of the time, the worst that can happen if we step out is that we fail, and almost always we can handle that. And
but even if you're packing fish or cleaning bathrooms, that for you might be the job. What you have to do is know if that's the job for you. I know it sounds awful, packing fish, but there's probably some people who like that job. Don't mind the smell, like the wages, don't like to take work home at night.
You know, Jack Lemmon was one of my favorite actors. In one of his last interviews, the interviewer said to him, Charlie Rose said,
right.
Jack, you've been very successful, haven't you? And I loved his response. He said, well, if you mean by that I've lived the life that I wanted to live, that I've been true to the things that were important to me, yes. He said, but I discovered a long time ago, he said, that you can be a janitor and be an incredibly successful person, and you can be an actor and be an incredible failure. He said, if you're not really being who you're supposed to be in the world. And I think that's what you're talking about, right? Success is not really about what the world thinks of you. It's whether you're living the life you were meant to live to the best you can live it. And that's true happiness.
And it's that feeling's in your gut.
Yes.
Because you know when you're there.
And when you have it.
And when you're not.
And when you have it, there's nothing more valuable than that feeling. I feel that in my life. I've lived the life I was supposed to live, and it gives me peace at night when I go to sleep.
And I bet you had to say to Mom and Dad, no, I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm not going to be an accountant. I'm not going to be a doctor.
Yes, in fact, ironically, I was going to be a lawyer. And when I decided not to go to law school and decided to really move into the save the world kind of business, my mother at first was like, are you nuts? And the funny thing is now today she's one of my biggest supporters because I think she sees it was my path. And I chose my path instead of the one that maybe someone else would ask you to do.
Even Ma came around.
Even Ma came around. Well, I think she may have had something to do with it.
How nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stepping Up, How Taking Responsibility Changes Everything, Dr. John Izzo. And remember, you can join me on Twitter at Fanny Kiefer or catch our conversations on YouTube. There'll be many more inspiring guests to come. Till then, thanks for watching Shaw TV and being with me today.